All right. Thank you for attending or watching later on Worldwide Slot Car Chat. We happen to be at the Big 5-0. Nothing special was planned initially, but Alan has volunteered to do a presentation on hydro dipping for cool custom paint jobs of car liveries. Before we get to that, let us have our newest attendee, Kevin, one of many Kevins, give his slot history introduction. Take it away, Kevin.
How's it going, guys?
Same old, same
old. Kevin Pepe from Chicago, Illinois. And I've been into slot cars now for about 10 years. My uncle got me into it. And unfortunately, he passed away, but I inherited some of his track and then I bought more. And here's just a quick view. That's my fun. Can you see it?
Wow.
Yes.
It's in the upstairs of my garage, so it's kind of hard to marshal, but I don't know if you can see the full skimmer there. I've got a head on that for grabbing the cars.
Also known as the pokey stick.
Yes. And then that's my fun little track cleaner.
Oh, that looks cool.
Thank you. But yeah, I've been into it for about 10 years. My uncle got me started into it. And like I said, unfortunately, when he passed away, I inherited his stuff, but I had it sitting for a while, and I finally brought it out about maybe 4 years ago. So started getting everything set back up and get back into it. And I've got 2 kids now too, so they enjoy the hell out of it.
Are you running digital or are you running analog there?
Digital.
Digital. Okay.
Carrera digital.
Cool. Looks like a nice layout.
Thank you. It's 156 feet worth of track. So
wow.
Ooh.
136 feet.
136. Nice. That's a good amount of lap time. What were you going to ask?
I was going to ask you about the length, and also, do you have a favorite type of car that you like racing around?
You know, we just bought the Zach Speed Capris, and those things are fast on the track. I can hit 10-second laps with it on the track. We're running silicone tires on it, so it's high 10 seconds, but you can pull like a 10.8 on it.
Wow.
And that's the sideways.
Pardon me?
Carrera.
That's Carrera. Yeah, Carrera is actually.
Carrera.
Actually, I think I've got it.
Yeah, get a sideways on there.
There you go. That's the one.
Yep.
Oh, 124th.
Yeah, 124th.
Oh, so do you do 120? You do both?
Yeah. Well, here, I don't know. I set up my panel. I know everybody says it's overkill. But here, that's on the 124th setting right now. That's on the 132nd setting.
Nice. So you just have a switch to flip between
Correct.
voltages.
And
Nice.
then I've also got on here there's a amperage switch in there, so I'm not blowing fuses anymore. If the track gets shorted, it just automatically resets.
Wow.
I got tired of blowing fuses all the time, especially with the kids. It's like
do you work in electrics by chance, or that's a really nice job?
Thank you. I used to be an electrician, actually.
There you go. Couldn't tell at all.
Well, my problem was initially I had the fuses in there, and I decided to try a circuit breaker to protect the track. Well, guess what that didn't do? That blew the CU. So it was like, you know what? Okay, now I'm going to spend the money and buy the amperage switch, be done with it. Now it just resets itself. So if that car's way off on the back end on one of the corners, flipped around and it's crossing the track, it just keeps resetting. Doesn't blow anything, just keeps resetting, doesn't damage the track, so I can have time to get the stick over there to get it off.
Can you only access the track from that one side? Is it walled in on all three?
You're looking at it right there.
So let me guess. You just do crash and burn, right?
Not really, not really. You know what? We've all gotten pretty good. My youngest son is about the only one that still crashes a lot. But me and the couple of buddies that actually race together up here, we've all gotten pretty good. We'll go, we'll do a 100-lap race. We might marshal the cars 3 times. So,
I mean, it's a strong incentive to not crash when crashing happens. You're fishing for the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, in real racing, they're called walls.
Yeah, correct.
And thousands and thousands of dollars in repairs.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing and showing off your track.
No problem.
I'm sure we'll come back to that at some point in the future as well.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have anything they desperately want to show and tell before we have Alan do his presentation? Seeing none. Alan, are you ready?
Alan.
Yeah, let Alan go, then we can do the other stuff later.
All right, Alan, you are spotlighted. Well,
Thank you.
Oh, okay, your bandwidth is low. So
Really?
go for it. Yep. Let's do what we can do.
Are you guys hearing me okay? Are you
Yeah, we
guys
can hear
hearing me
you.
okay?
It's
So
a little,
anyway,
it's a little slow, so you kind of want to let the visuals happen. So like, don't just hold something up real quick. If you're gonna show us something, hold it there for a while.
okay. I think that probably that's because I'm outside, and I'll explain why that is as we go through the presentation. So I'm going to go through hydrographic dipping as a way of painting slot car shells, and this is as opposed to doing, for example, spray work, which most people do, or decal work, which most people do, or even floating ink on water and dipping them, which I've seen done. That's not what we're doing here today. This is hydrographic film dip. So you're going to need some things to do this, and first you're going to need some film. So the film comes like this. You can get lots and lots of different films from lots and lots of different places. This is one I use quite a lot. This is called Sticker Bum. You can see it's semi-transparent.
I've frozen.
So you can see that you can see right through it.
Yep.
And there's another one that I use called Inferno.
You've got enough there, haven't you?
Okay. But for
You
today,
bought it in bulk then?
yeah, well, the films are available online. You can get them through eBay. But to do this process, you need the film. And today I'm going to be using a film called Tiny Dollar. Let me see if I can get that closer so that you can see it. These are US $100 bills. And it's quite a nice dip to do. I've done it before, but it can get lost in the kind of detail of a car if you're not careful. The other thing you're going to need is Activator. Now, this is a custom activator by a company called Dip This in the UK. What I would say is, this is the reason, this stuff is the reason I'm outside. Do not do this process indoors. Don't even be tempted to do this process in your garage. This stuff is toxic. If you watch professionals using this in paint shops, they're not just using masks, they're using breathing equipment. So it's very important to make sure that you treat this with respect. The other thing you need is a prepped body shell. So there's one I prepped earlier. It's actually an old one that I didn't ever really use. It's a slotted Toyota. You should remove all of the detail work. So for example, the crystal work has come off. I'm going to take the wings off. And this model has a removable rear grille, which I will spray chrome or something, but get rid of all of that stuff, take the body shell down to its basics. Now, because the films are semi-transparent, you will see the base coat that you've painted the body shell. You will see it through the dip film. So think about what you want to show underneath the design that you've got before you just go ahead and dip a car. The other thing you'll need is sticks. You can see I've used some toothpicks here and gloves. I've dipped without gloves. It's not a big deal. You just have to get this stuff off your hands, but really you should be wearing gloves. Then you need a box. I've used a biscuit tin here. Now this is an old sweet, celebrations sweet. Yeah, there you go. And half fill that full of water. So let me say it again, do this outside, which is why I'm under the moonlight tonight. All right. The water is ideally at 32 degrees centigrade, and that's 90 degrees in old money. So if you're on Fahrenheit, for you guys in the new world, 90 degrees. That is not too hot to put your hand in, but hot enough so that you feel it. Slightly below blood temperature. So I've got my kettle here. Gonna fill that up. Now there are several ways to deal with the film. The professionals will take the film and they will tape the edges and float it in a bath that's way too big for their needs, but they will float the film, and the masking tape around the edge will stop the film from collapsing in on itself. So that's one way to go. But for these kind of size of things, we don't really need to do that. So I will, yeah, that's about right. They say it needs to be exactly 32 or 90 degrees, but I've not found it to be that fussy. It's not that important. Right, now the dip film goes shiny side down. Now, if you're not sure, shiny side is the sticky side. So you drop the sticky side down.
Hey, Alan, Ray asked, is tap water okay, or does it need to be purified or distilled or anything?
Tap water is fine, and I haven't had any problem. And this is here in Hertfordshire, it's a very hard water area, and I've not found any problems with the lime scale at all. So that's it's a good question, but it's not something that you need to worry about at all, I don't think. So you can see I've floated the film now on there, and this has to sit for a minute before you can use the activator. So time for a quick drink. Right, now when you're choosing a film, if you noticed earlier, I said that I was using something called tiny dollars. And the reason to use tiny, if you search for tiny when you're using dip films or looking for dip films, is that if you don't use tiny, you get dollar bills kind of this size on the ink film, and that just doesn't work for the kind of thing we're looking for. So tiny carbon, tiny dollar, tiny Mistec, there are lots of them. Search for tiny. You're looking for the smallest scale one you can find. Even this tiny dollar really isn't as small as I would want it, and that's something to do, right? That's something to check on. If you're going to use decals, apply decals after you've done the dip. That's a good tip. And you can use decals on top of that, and then you can allow the whole lot to dry. And then you can use the spray varnish. So we'll get to that later. So you can see I'm not using a stopwatch or anything, just like I didn't use a thermometer. It's not that critical. If you look though, you can see that the ink is now starting to move a bit. And I'm just going to spray the activator. Let me move the things that matter out of the way. I'm going to spray this away from me. And don't blast the activator into the ink. It will knock holes in the ink. What you're looking for is a nice even spray. And you're looking for an even spray that just lies on top of the ink film.
So Alan, it looks like you've misted on the activator, right? It's like a mist.
Yes, kind of. Yeah, you could say a mist like that. You don't. Be careful not to blast it into the ink because it will knock holes in the ink. It will knock holes in the film. What the activator does is this ink is printed onto plastic, And this activator disintegrates the plastic. So there's no plastic left. It all sinks, just goes away, it dissolves into the water. Right, and dipping. Choose a nice angle. It's better if you've got the crystal work out. That's definitely better. And it's best not to rush it. Don't splush it. Don't plunge it in. Nice and gently. And at this point, if you've got a film that's got definite patterns that you want, you may want to aim for like that skull and crossbones on the roof or on the bonnet, or that sticker with a like Havelin insignia. You may think, I want it kind of just out here. Now's the time to choose that. Anyway, here goes. So this is just simply going in. There we go. Now I'm clearing away the residue here that didn't get dipped, because you don't want this stuff that's floating around in here to reattach to the body. So just kind of shake it around. Try not to hit the body on the bottom of the bucket. And lift out. Can you guys see that? Well, it's pretty good. Still steaming. So you should be able to see some details here. I can certainly see it, but you can see it's got that. Yeah, okay.
Next week,
It will certainly look different once it's dried. Now you're going to lose a lot of the definition of the dip here because you've still got the gel that's part of the dip on here. So let me just take you to the next stage. And I have a handy hose pipe here. Just rinse it off. Just get rid of that stuff. And you keep rinsing until that gel has gone.
And I imagine, Alan, you're rinsing gently.
Yeah, you don't need to blast it. Again, it's although the ink is pretty good and it doesn't pull off the body very much, but yeah, you can dislodge it. And at this point, you don't really want to be touching it. So I think this is going to be okay. So we're just going to turn the hose pipe on. Get my studio lights orientated. And you should be able to see that a bit better now. Now, some of these dips give you a better, definition than this one. So, but I wanted to do this one just because I wanted to give you this example. What I will do now is make sure that that is completely gel-free. So all of the junk has gone off it. And then I will allow it to dry naturally. And then at that point, I'll leave it a day and then I'll varnish it with an auto lacquer like this.
And the lacquer
And
has the lacquer has no ill effect on the dip at all?
None at all, no. No, I haven't found anything that upsets the dip paintwork at all. It all seems very straightforward. As you can see, you can get some really complicated designs done really nicely and quickly. It's not, though you've got to do it outside, it's not too inconvenient. So I went through choosing the film. So choose something that's got called tiny Mistec, tiny dollars, tiny carbon. Went through the decals. Ernie from Marin County, California, put a note on one of the forums to ask about weight. I don't believe there is a lighter solution to body painting than this. There just really isn't. You can dip right over an unpainted white kit shell, and if you choose the right dip, it will look really good.
So Alan, do do they have dips for chrome? So if you want to chrome parts?
Not really. The thing is that if you want a single finish, dipping isn't the way to go. If you want a complicated finish with, detailed artwork like a Le Mans art car, then it is the way to go. You can buy the film. You can either buy it on rolls or you can buy it folded. Folded will save you a lot of money on shipping. And I haven't found any problem with it being folded at all. When I first started this, I was very careful to be gentle with the dip film. It really doesn't matter. It's not going to get destroyed by folding it, stretching it, whatever. That's all good. Let me see. So I've just got to quickly go through what can go wrong.
I was just going to ask Alan, why did you not cut a piece appropriate sized?
The reason for that is that you get into a habit of using these films, of getting a piece that works just right, get a dip tub that you want, but not all of them are as incoherent as this dollar, for example. So really looking, so some of them have details in, especially sticker bomb, which has flaming skulls and motor stickers, that kind of thing. And sometimes you really want to just say, that's what I want on the roof right there. And so you move it. If you have something that's just the right size and you don't allow it to overflow the edge like this, you can see there's the overflow. So that's gone. That's rubbish now. Is that the film will fold as you dip.
Oh.
Now the professionals will tape around the edges with masking tape to stop that happen. I just make sure that I make the thing sit on the edge of the tub, and that works just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Quick summary of what goes wrong. What goes wrong is you get this too hot. If you can't stick your finger in, it's too hot. So get the temperature about right. If you put the film upside down, that's going to be a disaster. It's just not going to work at all. And if you have got grease and oil on the body shell, that's going to mess it up. And if you have a body shell that isn't kind of nice, smooth contour, if you have detailed ductwork, if you have a body shell that has detailed cuts in the side, sometimes you can't get the ink to flow into there as you dip it. But for you guys who are into model car racing, for the people who want to create art cars for Le Mans and things, it's a great way to go. You can really get some great artwork. If you are into just analog racing, it's good, but some of the dips are a bit hard on the eye. You may lose your lane tape, but it's a good way to get a kind of something that doesn't look as though it's an amateur finish onto a body shell. And I'd recommend you try it. So give it a go and then let me know. So back to the main studio, Greg.
Wonderful.
I was going to say, does anybody else have any additional questions for Alan before we change topics?
Hey, no, that was great. Well, thank you, Alan.
Oh,
Yeah, well done, Al. That was interesting.
That gives me confidence to give it a try. I mean, it's
me
like
too.
not hard to do and has nice results. So that's my kind of thing.
Definitely. Thank you for the demonstration. That's awesome.
that was really cool. At first I thought you were just going to make a very large cup of tea.
When you whipped out the teapot, right?
All right.
Cheers.
Since it seems that we're done with the hydro dipping stuff, does anybody have any show and tell? Any projects, any new purchases, any new tools? Working on anything, Dennis?
Yeah, I've always, I've always got something to show you guys.
Love it.
I'm going to start this way. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
No, let me try again. Hold on.
Yeah, it should be turned on.
Yeah, it is, but I'm not getting. Let me just check quickly. Oh, that's why. All right, now let me share my screen. And I should see, there we go. We have a new home track down in Southern California. And we ran on it for the first time on Saturday. This is it's under the patio of a buddy of mine down in Mission Viejo, which is a couple of towns south of me and a little further inland. As you could see, it was a beautiful winter day in California. It was well into the 70s, high 70s, low 80s. But it was great. So this is the track. I've got another photo. Let me move this thing out the way. There we go. Looking at it from here, this is as far as he's got with his construction so far. An interesting choice of colors. The gray for the surface is the urethane modified acrylic, the UMA paint that I have on my track, and that I always suggest to anybody who's going to run non-magnet cars, because it's so tolerant of various different types of tire. And this, of course, is brand new, so it's not rubbered in yet, but even so, after about 50 laps or so, it was getting pretty nice. The green that he used for the borders, when I first heard about it, I thought it wasn't going to work, but it looks fantastic.
It looks more like a topaz. It's very Santa Fe.
Yeah, it's very pretty actually when you see it in the flesh. And the design of the track is very similar to my the track that I have here on my patio. The guy who built it basically decided that he wanted something similar primarily because of the fact that my track has a nice flow and the fact that you only need 3 turn marshals, basically one at each end and one in the middle. But he had a little bit more space. So the track is the same length. It's 16 feet from one end to the other, but it's 7 feet wide, whereas mine is 6 feet wide. And so that's given him the opportunity to do a couple of things. He's a little bit more straight section here as you come onto the main straightaway. And then this internal sweeper in these S's is a much larger radius than on my track. And then also the other way, sorry. This end of the track, at the end of the straightaway, I have a little double wiggle going up the bridge, and he's taken that out. And of course, the extra foot has given him space to do a little bit more of a sweeping turn on the inside here. So even though it looks very similar, it actually drives quite a bit differently. And we're looking forward to some racing.
Well, that part, Dennis, looks more like a double apex than
this. This inside one is it's 2 turns. Right. Separated by about 6 inches of straightaway, but when you drive it, you pretty much drive it as a single turn because of the fact that it's a bigger radius on the exit. So you basically just, you brake for the beginning of it and you just drive the whole thing as a single turn.
It's very, very nice.
It's very nice. He's done a very good job. This guy is his name is Phil Nyland, and he has recently retired. He used to work for Toyota Racing Developments in their engine dyno. He's a fabricator and a machinist and a woodworker by hobby. And so it's very, very nicely built. It's smooth as a cat peeing on glass, as they would say. And
is it a single piece, Dennis?
Excuse me?
Sorry, is it a single piece?
No, it's multiple pieces, but it's a single table. I don't know how he's going to take it apart, quite honestly. So yeah, it's multiple pieces of MDF, but it's on top of a single frame.
Okay. Cheers.
Unlike mine, which is done in pieces.
Oh, he should get a T-bird the color of his borders to go around the track.
There you go.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of work to be done, but. He basically wanted us there over the weekend so that we could do a little bit of testing and do some fault finding, which we didn't find any. What we inadvertently also tested is wiring by somebody bumping a controller and shorting the alligator clips against each other. But all that dude did was blow one of the 9 fuses that he put into the circuit. So it was a matter of finding the right one, replacing it, and everything worked again. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Now it looks like there's a routed sort of, I guess an unbraided slot. Is that for like display area or?
This routed unbladed slot there, I think he was thinking about putting a barrier in there. Like all of all these internal barriers are inset into a routed slot. And we started using it exactly for that, just to put cars around there.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great idea.
This is a little too. This is probably a little too tight to bend a piece of hardboard into that, but you might get a bit of Sintra in there, or Lexan or something like that.
Or even some styrene, I guess, as well, right?
Yeah, something like that may go in there. But that slot continues pretty much all the way down. And it's a very convenient place to store cars, because where this one is placed right now in between, even though this is the same lane, it can cause some trouble.
Okay. And what type of timing is he using?
He will use TrackMate eventually. He has a TrackMate system that we haven't put up yet. So it'll be a TrackMate with a light bridge and photo sensors.
So you guys were just timing like old school? Just
we weren't even bothering. We were just, pick up races, right? 2 guys get on the track and stop somewhere and say, okay, on 3, and go,
I was one of them.
Oh, Eddie's with us. There's a new face. Eddie Shore is on the line, guys.
Popped in.
Hey, oh, wow.
I'm gonna stop this share now that Eddie's up there, because he's a lot more interesting to talk to than me. I have a couple of other things to show you. Not that, but that.
Oh, there we go.
This is a chassis I've just finished building for a customer. It takes a 36D Cox NASCAR motor. The drop arm section in the middle there is an original Cox part from the 1960s. The wheels are original Cox magnesiums, and all of this is going under a Lola T70 body that the customer painted.
Wow, those look like, are those the BRM wheels from Cox?
Yeah.
Very nice.
So I just finished that this morning and just finished the photos. So that'll be off to him this afternoon. All right, so that's my share. So I'm going to stop and let Eddie take over.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Ed. Do you want to give us a little bit about Ed's history in slot cars?
Oh my, that would take a little while, but I'll just say that I'll say what I'm doing currently. I'm primarily racing 3 different types of slot cars. I'm in a club called the Far Out Club in Southern California that has 10 tracks in homes and patios, etc. And then I do hard body racing at Buena Park Raceway once a month with Keith Tanaka and the D3 group. So those are hard plastic 124 scale cars on scratch built chassis. And then I do retro racing at Buena Park Raceway once in a while. I'm starting to do that, I guess, once a month now. We're having a new series every first Saturday of the month. So those 3 things keep me more than busy enough. And I'm more of a driver than a builder. Dennis has been saving me more than a few times by getting my cars prepared. And I just enjoy racing more than anything else, but you have to learn how to tune in order to be competitive. So I've picked that up along the way.
Well, I'm glad.
You better tell him about your track, Eddie.
Yeah, tell
my track?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've had a track that's, we call it King Mini Boula Raceway, named after Team Boula, which I was an original member of back in the 60s, late 60s. And it's a track built by Bob Scott. It's a shape of a king track. The footprint is 18 by 8. It's a 4-lane routed track. We get around it in about 5 seconds or so with Slotits and NSR type cars. And it's been outside under a 2-story deck for over 10 years and somehow surviving. The biggest problems have been spiders that have crawled into the TrackMate software or hardware and set sacks of spider eggs that have shorted things out that have taken some maintenance. But it's a great track, and I host Far Out Club races on that track when we're not in the middle of a pandemic.
I'm trying to find a photo, but I can't find one right now.
Ah,
Ed, how long is your track, Ed? Sorry.
oh, it's about 55 feet running feet each lane.
Nice. You're not near it by any chance, are you?
No, it's covered up, and I'm on the
Okay.
porch right now. It's out back. I just popped in. I didn't really know what was going on in here, so I will be better prepared next time.
Yeah.
I mean, we love for guys to just kind of come in and start showing off stuff. You don't have to make
Yeah.
a presentation or anything, but if you want, it's always nice to have some photos to
Yeah,
you find something.
Eddie, you need to tell them about your research.
Oh yeah, well I've been I have a crazy degree of a graduate degree in popular culture studies, and so in the past, I guess starting in 2008, I started doing some presentations on slot cars, and so I've finished I guess 4 of them that I've presented. The 5th one I was to present last year, but it was canceled, and so I'm finishing up one right now, which is the last one. It's going to be on slot car racing and happiness. So I put out a questionnaire, got back about 75 responses, and I've been just basically putting all that together and trying to figure out what are some of the real threads through there, what causes what the happiness that different racers experience. And it's been everything from collecting to building to being competitive to just nostalgia. I mean, just a number of different topics. So those are things that I've been working on, and I do plan on putting this last one will be the 6th one, and I plan on putting them all together into a book, hopefully by the end of the year, if all goes well.
Cool. Well, if you ever feel like sharing any information or pages or pictures or anything,
Sure,
on,
absolutely.
you're welcome to. Yeah,
Each one of the presentations came with PowerPoint presentations, so that'd be something that I could do sometime that would be kind of fun, maybe.
it's
So
entirely,
Rather than just yellowing in a file, it's more fun to share these things.
So can you touch on the variety of enjoyment factors that you've found? Because that's something that I think we've discovered just in our chats, just the so many different ways everyone can enjoy this wonderful hobby.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The key I found is that there's just it runs the gamut from the people who are just competitive racers, and that's where their true joy is. And then there's the people that don't give a hoot about the racing. They just want to sit there at their desk working on their cars, whether they see another person or not. So
And then there are other guys who only care about the beer, right?
yeah, then there are the beer drinkers. Absolutely. If there's no beer, I'm not coming to the race. That kind of attitude. There you go.
Oh, Martin's got a nice dark one there. Whoa.
Yeah.
And Alan's got a good beer. Yeah, you see, the British guys got it right. But then
Yeah.
the sun is over the yardarm, so I guess they can do that.
Well, we've got one guy in our club that I've known. He's one of the top drivers, and I notice that sometimes I think, oh, God, isn't he drinking just a little bit too much? But he always does better with the more that he drinks. So go figure. Maybe it just loosens him up, gets him. I guess part of my research was actually this latest paper. I had people talking about being in the zone, where they just totally forget about everything that's all around them. They're just totally focused 110% on their driving. And maybe that's what happens when somebody consumes or imbibes a little bit more than they ought to, is they get out of themselves or the surroundings and get totally in the car that they're driving, perhaps. But there are people that were commenting on, they'll build to the point where they some of you probably have forgotten to eat, and time just goes by, and next thing you know, it's way later than you think it is.
For sure. I'm sure we all have that happen depending, whatever facet of the hobby that we enjoy,
Yeah.
building or tuning or painting or whatevering.
Yeah, it's true. They each of them, of course, share that. When you're really into something, of course, it can take over your life, and it's I guess slot car racing is just it has its own peculiar components because it involves the competition, the racing, and the building, and the collecting, and the both the sport and the hobby aspects of it. It's pretty engaging, as we all know. Those of us that are into it.
That's why we're here.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Being retired helps also, probably, right?
It certainly does. Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again. And
Hey, my pleasure.
anytime you feel like doing one of your presentations, just say, "Hey, Greg, I'll do a presentation," and I'll say, "Okay, take the floor. It's yours."
Sounds good.
Since we're done with that, does anybody have anything they want to show off? Dennis, did you have more things? Big Den, you raised your hand. Go for it.
Yeah, okay. I'll just not as anything as involved as last week, but I just got I hope the share screen thing works this time. I'm clicking on it, but nothing's happening.
Apparently, it's being slow this week.
Okay, now we're right. So we were talking last week about the fly pods, and I mentioned how I use just screws to keep the pods together. So
you're not sharing it yet, by the way.
Oh, hang on, just go back. Yep. Yeah, I don't know why I'm clicking on the share screen, but it's not doing it. Give it another go.
Not restricted.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Dan, this isn't your April Fool's joke, is it?
Yeah, he's playing us. That's what it is.
No, I'm just. Yeah, this is just me proving I'm an April Fool. I'm just gonna click it. I'll just try again. Right. So can you see anything yet, or?
Now we got something coming in.
Coming.
Okay, right. Now we're right.
Yeah, now we can see your folder, but as soon as you open that, we're not going to see the picture.
Okay, well, okay. Now, can you see a picture now?
No, because you're sharing the folder. As soon as you open the picture, that's a different program.
Yeah. Okay. Righto. Yeah. I'll just do a new share then. How's that?
Yep.
Yeah. Once you open the photo, then share, and it'll work.
There we go.
How's that?
Hey.
Okay. Now I knew that all the time. I was just having you on. So.
Yeah. Good job.
Okay. So so you can see these are a couple of Falcon slot cars, which is probably as close to fly as you're ever going to get. And you can just see the two little brass screws that I've got on the bottom of the pods there. And they go through and I'll show you a top view in a minute. So I'll just pop through to the next photo.
Click the arrow.
If you click to the next photo, it'll show. Just click through the next photo.
Yeah.
Bottom center.
Oh.
Yep. Now we're doing that again.
There you go.
So that's the actual cars. Okay. So now that's the bottom of just a fly chassis. Again, you can see the screws there. And if I go there, you can actually just see the bolts coming up through up there, just ahead of the motor box.
Yep.
So that just holds the the two parts of the chassis together. And if you want to go back to a floating arrangement, you just undo the bolts and things. So there's just a picture of the actual little bolts and nuts that I use. So that's all I need to do for today. So a couple of points there. I just wondered, Dennis, when you go down to that track with the gaudy borders, did they provide you with sunglasses?
No, it's not that gaudy. But the sun, you'd need the sunglasses for the because it's out in the sun. So I think it's going to be interesting to race there during the summer, because while there's sun on the track, there's going to be a change of temperature from one part of the track to the other, and that may well affect the traction on the track. I know my track is fairly sensitive to that, to the temperatures. So we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully he will extend the cover on that over the top of the track a little further, so we get a little less sunshine on it during the
Dennis,
during the summer months.
Does the sun hurt the track at all? Does it warp or anything? Or
I doubt it. I mean, it's going to be, his track's going to be covered like mine is. He has a tarpaulin that goes over the top of it. So I can't think that it's going to be damaged too badly. And Eddie will tell you, Eddie's track's been standing outside for 10 years. My track's been standing outside for 10 years. They're both kind of covered, and they both get a tarpaulin over them. So
It had a little bit of water damage where it's kind of snuck down onto the track and I hadn't noticed it for a week or two, and they'll come in. So I've had to sand down parts of it that got swollen.
I had a little bit of mold grow on mine at one stage, but other than that, I've had no problem, except the feet of the where it stands on the patio. There they've had a little bit of water damage, but it's not much in 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for a photograph of Eddie's track. I'm getting closer. I'll let you know when I find one.
So we have those in Canada. They're called skating rinks.
Yeah. Has anybody, or you, Dennis, have you shared Philippe's book at all? Do they know about that? It happens to be on my lap.
Oh yeah, you go for it then. I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know that I said much about the book.
Computer off. I'll just hold it up here. Maybe it'll be able to show. Let's see. There we go. Can you see that okay?
Oh.
So this book that Philippe de L'Espinay just put out, I guess I'm kind of an eager fan. So I was apparently the first one to sign on to order it. And I was the first one to go down and pick it up. And since they were signing copies, the first 50, I got it signed saying that I'm number one. So it's a book. When you open it up, it's over 2 feet wide. So it's quite an extensive book and filled with lots of pictures. I mean, very thorough as far as the kinds of things that it covers. It's something that a lot of us have been waiting for many, many years. And
well, look, it looks like it needs its own bookshelf.
It really is something to handle. Apparently, they're going to be putting out a soft cover of it that'll be a bit more affordable. But at this size, I can tell you, it's pretty hefty to hang on to.
Now, where do you plug the controller in?
Exactly. But it's a lot of us have been waiting for it for a long time, so it's kind of cool that it's finally here. He did put a lot of time into writing it, for sure.
Can I ask if you've followed any of the links? Because one of the write-ups of the book said that there were live web links on there.
Yes, I have. I have gone through them to see.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah. My take on it is that it's I guess it's kind of like it's not as extensive, I guess, as I expected it to be. And I don't know if any more is going to be added to it, the stuff that's online. It's kind of like filling the information that he started writing about that's in the book. And it just continues with some of the text rather than a lot of pictures that I've noticed.
Probably the editor said yeah, that's too much information. Let's put some of it online.
Yeah, it's exactly what.
It would have been a 500-page book, I think,
Yeah.
if it
But
had continued.
I must admit that I've looked at the links, particularly when I was going through the chapter on the pro racing era, and I found a lot of those links very helpful and interesting, because there are interviews and quotes from people that are actually long since gone, who were involved and influenced slot car racing, particularly 1/24 scale commercial racing back in the 60s. So it's interesting to hear some of those stories, or to read some of those stories, put it that way. But yeah, it's a pretty nice book. There's a lot of pages there that are basically just cataloging what's in the museum, and giving you a massively complete overview of American slot car manufacturing in the 1960s.
More than you want to know, maybe.
Just about.
I would have to say the one thing that I wish that it had is an index.
Yeah.
I really would love to be able just to look up stuff, but
they're going to sell that as a separate book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hold on, let me get the index down. Flip, 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 flip.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that I remember the hype about the book, and there was a advertising ahead of time. We're doing this book, it's coming out and stuff, and it seemed very ambitious just from that, and it looks like they accomplished their goal.
Yeah,
having that book be pretty much everything.
Maybe 5 years late, but
Yeah, we've been
What's
hearing
5
about that book for at least 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, it did have quite the gestation period. That's true.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And I think it has changed character over that period too.
Right.
I think originally it was intended basically to be just pro racing, and now it has a lot more than that in it. Basically, because of the need to cover a lot of the stuff that's in the museum.
Well, and to Ed's point, the hobby was more than just racing to a lot of people.
Sure.
So what's the background of the author?
Philippe de L'Espinay, he was born in France of, I think, Spanish parents. He worked for Heller, the European model makers at one point. He was a slot car racer in France when he was growing up. He came to the US, I think originally as a visitor, and stayed. He carried on racing slot cars. He worked for Cox for a while as a designer. He designed the entire range of those were they 1/40th scale or whatever the Cox super scale cars were. They were a little smaller than 1/32nd scale. He designed those. He had his own little company making slot car parts called Neat Things for a long time. He raced with Team Checkpoint with Mike Stubbe and those guys. Then he got involved with, is it Studio 21 or something like that? The guys who make fireproof racing apparel. And
it's Stand 21.
Stand 21, excuse me, Stand 21. And brought all of their stuff into the US. And then he started the company called Electric Dreams, which at the time basically dealt in vintage slot cars and slot car parts. He would buy up here and there and clean and restore and resell and do all of that. And he also started the company called TSRF, the True Scale Racing Federation. He's had these ideas of this true scale style of racing. Produced a chassis that was, or two chassis in 32nd and 24th scale that were further developments of what he'd done for Cox with the super scale stuff. Promoted that for a long time. Then Scott Bader, who now is the owner of Electric Dreams, bought the business off of him, primarily in order to get hold of all the vintage stuff that he had, I think, because Scott was already collecting at that stage and had this dream of this museum. And he then employed Philippe as part of the museum, as the curator. There are lots of other things about Philippe that are not slot car related. He restored and owned the Brabham Cooper T50 51, was it, that he raced at Indy?
No, T54.
T54, the Kimberley car. So he found that and restored that and has since sold it. He has a couple of others. He had a Brabham BT8 at one stage, and a couple of other things. So
he was also a factory rider for Morbidelli, was he not?
I'm not sure that he was a factory rider. I know that he ran Morbidellis at one stage, but he also did produce and race his own design 50cc racer out here. And so he's got a very varied background. You can go Google him. You'll find him on Wikipedia somewhere. Probably about half of what's out there is actually true, and a lot of it is quite a few things are figments of various people's imaginations, not just his. But a very talented man.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting guy. But if he rode Morbidellis, I'm guessing he's a slight guy.
Oh, he's a tiny little fella. Yeah,
like 80 kilos soaking wet or something.
Yeah, I think he stands about 5'4" or 5. And yeah, I don't know that he
carry a Morbidelli under each arm.
Mm-hmm.
He does know
that's
stuff.
really interesting.
He does know stuff, Eddie. You're right. He knows a lot of stuff. He's not averse to making up stuff at times, though.
Cheers, guys. That was really interesting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a very, very, very crazy right wing politically, which you have to just deal with.
Let's not talk about that.
All right, we won't talk about that. Just
don't talk about guns. Don't talk about God.
Fair warning. Fair warning.
When you're sitting down with Philippe, just kind of skirt the subjects and talk about.
That's one thing that you don't
change his train of thought there back to slot cars or something.
Mm-hmm.
He'd get on really well with Ted Nugent and those kind of guys, right?
Ted Nugent might be a little liberal for Philippe.
Oh my God.
All right, changing subjects.
Anyway, yeah. Very entertaining guy, though. And very, very capable. I mean, most of the restorations that have been done for the museum, Philippe himself has done them. They have contracted out to one or two other people. But most of the restorations he has done, and he does really wonderful work. The stuff in the museum is just amazing.
The book basically seems like a book version of the museum, pretty much. But
a little bit in especially the early chapters, which show all of the manufacturers and all the photographs that are in there. Pretty much are photographs of what's in the museum, and there's 800 photographs in the book. So everything that's a photograph of a car or a box or a body or a motor in its box or a car in its box, pretty much is from the museum collection.
Yeah, the museum is definitely a must-see place. Anybody that makes it to Los Angeles, make sure you get in touch with them ahead of time and go for a visit. It is open.
Yeah, you have to make an appointment, but you can get in there and be prepared for sensory overload in all senses. It's just the most mind-boggling place you have ever been in if you're a slot car racer.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere nearby where we can park the wife for 4 or 5 hours?
Downtown Los
See
Angeles.
what I'm at.
Yeah, it's located in West Hollywood, so it's not too far from Hollywood Strip and Hollywood Boulevard and so on. You could probably park her there, or you know.
Yeah, she keeps nagging me to take her to Las Vegas and LA, and I just refuse on both. We got family either side, and yeah, it's an excuse to go to LA now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
Dennis,
and
it made
you
me
do
think-
need about 4 hours to go through it. You can't really do it in less than 4 hours. Sorry, Alan, you were asking?
Yeah, just your train of thought there, and talking about Philippe, and it's something I've thought about. Only having been back in slotting for about 4 years, is that there's no real kind of who's who in this industry. There's no real website or resource where you can go. Now, I'm aware of some of these people, and I've met some of these people, like, for example, Giovanni from Thunderslot. He comes over to our club sometimes, and you see him at those slot car festivals. I never met Salvatore Noviello. He died before I was into slotting, but his son, Andrea, never met him. Don't think I ever met him. Don't know of any photographs of him. And there are lots of people who are kind of the movers and shakers in the industry at 132. For example, the guy behind Black Arrow in Spain, I don't even know his name, or the guy behind Racer Sideways. I mean, they're doing some great stuff. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they're based. I don't see any photographs online. And, it's not going to be a Philippe book, but the idea of having a resource we could go to so that new slotters could say, oh, well, who's behind this? Who's behind NSR? Who's behind them?
Yeah.
Well, there's your next project, Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Now, Alan, if you really want to go deep, I mean, just pick up issues of Car Model magazine from the 60s, or any of those old magazines, and the number of people like Jose Rodriguez Jr. Oh my God, they're the Stu brothers. I mean, there was a whole plethora of folks that sort of were really I guess the pioneers, for lack of a better description.
True, but in the modern, it's true that, but in the modern kind of setting, I'm thinking about, the Ostorero brothers who produced the Ostorero cars, who used to produce Allsmont. It's very hard to find pictures of those guys. So there's great history, and I think that Philippe's book probably covers the history very comprehensively. But if you look at the modern slot car industry, it's very dispersed. There isn't any real, kind of detail out there, pictures, who's who runs these companies, which cars, where are they from? And some of them have got great stories to tell, so working for one company, maybe getting sacked, moved to a different company, Fly and the SRC story, NSR and the Thunderslot story. There's a lot of commonality there. So it's a shame that we never get to see it.
Yeah, no,
Greg, that sounds like a job for Slot Wiki, doesn't it, Greg?
I was just about to mention that. Thanks, Gary. So a couple of years ago now, I started slotcarwiki.org, slotcarwiki.org, and tried to get some momentum going. It's a real wiki, just like Wikipedia, where anybody can create an account, anybody can go in and edit pages, add information. Your registration, there's various levels of registration. Every change is saved by the wiki. So if somebody goes in there and manipulates information, it can be rolled back. Pages can be restricted. It's a full wiki site, just like Wikipedia, but it's specifically for slot cars of all kinds. Slotcarwiki.org. The problem is getting traction. Early on, there was some interest, and we had some contributions from myself, of course, and Jason from some of the forums contributed a lot, and there was a variety of other people who contributed here and there. Some people treated it as a way to market things, which is fine, as long as what's going in the page is information that can be useful to somebody. Links to outside sources, of course, reference links and everything, just like a regular wiki. But the problem is it just, you know, a wiki only works when there's traffic, and traffic only happens when there's content. Content only happens when there's traffic. It's a chicken and egg scenario. So you'll end up in a situation where the only way to get it going is to get people to go and put information there so that it can become a resource. But a wiki only works when you have lots and lots of people going and seeing, oh, I have information that's missing, I can put it up there, or going and looking for information, finding it, and then, you know, sharing that information, you know. So it's kind of dead in the water at the moment, but hey, slotcarwiki.org, slotcarwiki.org.
So, Greg, question, do you have categories there? For example, is there a section for being able to put, if you call them either personalities or companies, where people could add to the history of people or companies?
Yes. It's still nascent, and now I'm trying to figure out why it's not working, because somebody pointed out that it's not working. So that would be a reason why it's not working at the moment, but I'll figure that out. Hold on, let me try something else here.
When Greg's looking at that, I did say, you know, this is an opportunity perhaps for us to write to some of the companies like SRC and Sideways and ask them to give us a biog of the company and the characters, or if they're not happy uploading it or au fait with uploading it, send it to us and we'll do it for them.
Yeah.
You know, if we all take a slice each, it's your old eating elephant scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, now that I'm plugging it on the channel, on the chat, it's not working. So I'll figure that out if anybody actually has any interest in. But you can, once you create an account, you can add anything that you feel is missing, right? So you can go to the top level and edit the very front page that says, you know, go to here for people information, go to here for manufacturer information. And then you click on that link that you just created and start adding people to the next page and categorize them however you see fit. And the whole thing can grow and change over time. That's the whole point of a wiki, is large numbers of people add small bits of data and it becomes a big resource.
There used to be, published by Scale Auto Racing News, John Ford, a guy who published that magazine over many years in the 70s and 80s. He used to have what he called a Hall of Fame, which was a long list of names and who they were and where they came from. But I'm trying to find it, but I just cannot find it anywhere right now. It seems like it has disappeared. He's passed on, of course, by now, so that may be part of the reason.
Well, there's also a lot of sites that there are other sites that call themselves a wiki, but aren't. They're just a regular site that a specific person is creating the content for. In order to get new content on there, you got to send it to that person and have them put it up there. So they don't understand what a wiki actually is. And of course, there's lots of sites that have tons and tons of information and can be, you know, great references. You know, go to a wiki looking for something and you end up finding information on that other site. That's kind of, it's the internet. The World Wide Web started out as a way to interlink the documents on the web. So you go to one document and you link to more information elsewhere. That's literally what World Wide Web stands for, and they've stopped doing it. Every site feels like it needs to be the site for everything, and that's not the way that it works. Even the wiki, you know, if all it was is a link index, which used to be a thing as well before Google, that would be fine by me. In fact, I've gotten to the point where I was thinking about shutting it down, which is probably why it's not working right now. I probably got some.
It is working. I have it up and running right in front of me right now.
Is it?
Yeah. slotcarwiki.org. I typed that in and it came straight up. It says here, yeah, who really owns slotcarwiki? The slotcarwiki domain is owned by Greg Gaub.
Can you share your screen? I think you're probably on a search result.
Hang on a moment. Let me get back to my share screen.
And can you cut and paste that URL into the chat, please?
I mean,
Sorry.
Can you see that?
I don't think it's actually working for Dennis. Oh, no, that's the actual website.
Yeah, that's it.
Slotcarwiki.org. Yeah, there's donate as Portals mentioned, there's a domain name registration problem going on. So I'll have to contact my service provider and tell them to fix the DNS that is broken. So that basically means that some people are going to be able to go to the website and some people are not going to be able to go to the website until the domain name server that any particular person connects to is routing to the correct IP. And it looks like Portals shared the IP. So if you type in 74.220.219.106, that should work.
I know what you did here. You just wanted only slot car people to see it.
No, and that doesn't work either. Not for me. So the problem with IP address is I don't have a static IP. I'm not paying extra for a static IP. So that means that when the IP changes and the DNS servers don't update, then things don't work correctly. Yeah. So hopefully people who are watching this tomorrow, it's working. So slotcarwiki.org, and I'll try to make sure anything I can fix will be fixed in the meantime. But now that we've beaten that horse into the ground, does anybody else have anything they want to share or show and talk about? Questions they'd like to ask of the experts? Circle back on any topic. Interrupt me at any moment.
Hi, Greg. Good evening. I've got something that I could show you all.
Yeah.
Particularly
Gary.
after. Hey, Martin. Good to see you. After Alan's fantastic water dipping tutorial, it got me thinking about alternative decorations on slot cars. And I've got one of those right here. And I don't know if John Underwood's still on the call. He might be the only other person that's seen this car before. I'm going to hold it up.
What are you doing, right?
Can everybody see this car?
Yep.
Disco Proton, lovely.
This is a Scale Auto 991 in the Dempsey Proton color scheme. And it's something that was featured in your recent call, Greg, when Wayne Lander was reminiscing about them all. But the car in that video was made by Tamar Nelvan, and this is the one that I built. And what's unusual about this car in terms of its decoration is that I did it with a Sharpie. The decoration on this car, all of it, is done with Sharpie pens.
By hand.
By hand.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Now, as my wife would say to me, do it again.
Yeah.
Well done.
Actually, John, I'm planning on doing it again.
Well done. Oh, that's awesome.
I found a Scale Auto white kit in my cupboard 3 days ago, and I thought, you know what I fancy? Remember when? And the story behind this car is that we raced this for the first time at Suzuka 6 Hours at SRC Eindhoven for the start of the Disco WEC season in 2017. And the original plan was that Tamar was going to build the cars. And he called me with a week or so to go before the race and said, look, I know I said I was going to build the cars, but I've been really busy organizing the race and doing other non-slot car stuff. So would you be able to build the cars? And I thought, no, but you know, you can't say that, can you? So I thought, right, this car is a complicated livery and it's what we agreed we were going to run. So I'm not going to pick a different one. How am I going to do it? Now, I don't have the patience to do a livery like this with painting without the deadline of 7 days. So I thought, I need to do this quickly. And how can I do it quickly? So I did a grey primer coat, just generally all over the car. And then this corner here and this corner, sorry, it's all a bit awkward. The very lightest blue color is painted on. So I had a grey car and I had one blue quarter at each end of the car. And then I went through my pencil case of 30 coloured Sharpies and I thought, right, I'm We need a dark grey, a medium blue, and a black. And then we got to work. So painting the car probably only was 1 day's work because primer dries very quickly. So it was probably grey primer, 2 hours later, put the blue on, leave that overnight. And then I probably did the rest of the Sharpie pattern over the course of 2 evenings or so, because I was, going to work and having a normal life like we all do. And when we raced this car in Eindhoven, it didn't have any Decals sponsor stickers on it at all. This all sort of came later on. We just ran it in the Simply colours with the mandatory Disca stickers on it. So we had race number, class and a flag on it. And that's the story of this car. And then Tamar built his car, which was shown in the other call. And we raced that at Le Mans that year. He actually did his colour scheme with a wrap. So not too dissimilar to what Alan did, but it wasn't the same technique at all. But he had this sort of large decal sheet with all the triangles printed on it that I thought would never work in a million years. But he managed to make it work. This is Tamar we're talking about. And yeah, the guy's a magician, so he somehow made it work. And that was the car we raced at Le Mans. And this then became our practice car for Le Mans. So that's why I put all the rest of the stickers on it for that race. We also raced it at Rockingham later in that year. And that's the reason why it's currently got the angle winder boxer motor. We ran the car for most of the season with a sidewinder short can. But when we put Tamar's car on the track at Rockingham, which was the Spa layout, his Le Mans setup wasn't working too well for that, and mine felt a bit better. I thought I would just experiment with the long can because why not? We hadn't run it all year, we may as well try it. And it felt pretty good. And we were probably actually going to run this car. But, again, Tamar didn't want to let that go. So about 5 minutes before the practice ended, it was try it now. And his car felt a little better at that point. So we ran his car for Rockingham as well. But yeah, that's the story of this Dempsey Proton decorated Porsche 911 that was done with Sharpie markers.
So that's a regular Sharpie permanent marker?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis.
Okay, not a paint.
Did you coat it with anything to protect it at all?
Yeah, that's next question.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
Not for the first race at Eindhoven, no. But by the time I'd put the sponsored decals on for Le Mans, I clear coated it after it had the decals on.
Okay.
But there's some damage. You see that sort of white smudge on the door there on that side.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's not held up too badly. The back, which tends to get a lot of damage in digital racing.
And how do you manage to get?
Well.
How do you manage to color in a big area like that without getting like little what would be brush strokes if you were brushing it?
It's a bit hit and miss, really. So if I show you this corner, you can see that's a bit brush strokey.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
But in other areas, it's just not. So I don't know. I guess I was lucky.
Okay.
It's
very cool.
I've seen it. I've raced against it, and it goes as well as it looks. Gary's, he's painted it by hand, the Sharpies, etc. But he looks really good. Obviously, you look up close, you can see slight imperfections in it. So what? You're racing it. So when it's whizzing around the track, it looks lovely. The lights are on it. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it looks great on track in action. And that Spa circuit was fabulous with it.
Yeah, thank you, Martin.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Gary. Anybody else?
Okay, I got to go raid my wife's office supplies. Excuse me for a minute.
Sorry, it's for slot cars. Taking it.
Yeah, I'll give that a go sometime too. That looks like a really interesting technique.
I mean,
I did try that technique myself with Sharpies and thought that this will be interesting. And it came up with some challenges. And one of them was to get the edges of the geometry sharp. And I managed that with masking. So I masked out triangles and various things and filled them in with Sharpie. But the problem I found is when I did the clear coat caused the Sharpie to bleed everywhere. So that was a wasted body shop.
That's interesting, Alan, because that just didn't happen to me. And I used the same Halfords lacquer that you showed earlier on. So
What you got?
I can't explain that one.
Jeremy, what's that? What's that you got there?
Yeah, hi Jeremy. Good to see you on the
Hello.
call. I know exactly
Hello.
what that is.
I did this. I'm not going to hold it too close to the screen because it looks a bit tatty. So this is a third. This is the height. This is the other option. This is the wrap. So I went with an art car because a wrap would never fit. They're not designed for particular cars. So it's patched in various places. But it's yeah, it's just it's an art car, a patos place. Cut and what's it called? Cut and stick, peel and stick, full body wrap. The Monarch car with Gary's numbers on it. They are Gary. I've got your numbers.
Yes, now I recognise them. How have you been getting on with that car? Because I haven't spoken to you about it in a while.
It's taken years to get the controller working, but this year I wanted to. It'll be out and about hopefully. But yeah, I've got the bug.
Another converted person.
We're slowly getting there, aren't we, John?
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, that's a wrap, sticky wrap.
Speaking of controllers, apparently that slotted base SCP Basics video is doing some good in the world. I got some private messages from a guy who's like, after seeing your video, I went ahead and gave it another try. It shaved a half a second off my lap time. And I'm like, yeah, awesome. wait till you learn how to use those dip switches and the curve max knob.
While you're talking about the slotted controllers, Greg, do you know anybody that works on those things? Because my buddy with the new track has two that are just not working at all, and I don't know that there's anybody that can repair them or even diagnose issues with them.
I don't. Pretty much all the issues that I've ever run into, barring prototype handles that I test for Maurizio, is like the cartridge is not the appropriate cartridge for whatever track is in use, or popped a fuse or something simple like that. For the most part.
Oh, I remember they do have a fuse down in the cartridge part of the handle, right? I must check that. I've forgotten about
the original analog cartridge has one fuse in it. In the cartridge. The metal cartridge has a fuse in line, so that's more noticeable. People like, oh, there's a fuse there, I'll check that. And then the new universal analog cartridge has two fuses in it because it's capable of being positive or negative polarity. So
okay,
I mean,
thanks. Yeah, that'll help me. I'll check it out.
Dennis, it's worth writing to Maurizio. Get him to write to Maurizio, and he might be able to suggest someone close. He's a helpful guy.
Thanks, Martin. I'll try those because Phil's been asking me about them. He has three. I think they're SCP 1.1s, or maybe 2s. And the only two that I ever had. I never could get used to it, but the guy that I sold it to is quite happy with it. So
I did try to help a guy. I forget if it was on a forum or Facebook or private message or whatever, but he was asking me about, I think it was a Facebook group. He was Home Racing World group, probably. He was asking about why isn't his controller working on his track? And it was the SCP-2, I think, with the universal analog cartridge. And I think he got it from Electric Dreams because he called it a pigtail, which converted the 3 banana plugs to a Scalextric audio style
it
plug.
may have been from Professor Motor then.
Could have been, yeah. But basically, after a while of back and forthing and me reading the manual for the universal analog cartridge, he'd been plugging it into a common ground track, but it was common positive setup on the controller, or vice versa, I forget. But basically the universal analog cartridge can't determine if it's negative or positive polarity for the wiring. You have to know, and you have to remove or install a jumper in the cartridge to hook it up to the track in question. The controller can do either one, but you got to know which one you're plugging it into and have that jumper right.
Put the jumper in the right place. Mhm.
And he didn't. And I think once he either removed or installed the jumper, then it worked again. I think that's probably going to be the main thing for that cartridge.
Yeah, in this particular case, it's probably just the fact that maybe the brown fuses, because we've used those controllers on that track, on his previous track, so they should still be working. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'll have a look at it. Thanks.
Bits and pieces on my controllers. One of my controllers. This is the circuit board out of the SCP2 I use with the Gas Monkey team. So I use this one solely for digital. And I had a problem, is that this controller got dropped and the switch here got broken. So I thought, right, no fear. I am just going to order a switch and I'm going to solder it into place. And I'm sure Maurizio would have a heart attack about how rough the soldering is. But as you said, there is nowhere you can go to get this kind of work done. So I just, thought, right, I'll do it. And I soldered this in and this works fine. And now, emboldened by my success, I'm now starting to think about how to change this controller to be something that I want to use to race. When I use the SCP in analog mode, go down to the local clubs, Nascot Wood and to London Slot Car, I don't use that twin grip thing that everybody uses. Everyone uses that kind of thing like this. I just have the controller loose at my side. It helps my blood flow. I just feel natural doing that. One hand in my jeans pocket, the other hand by my side. When you're racing digital, you just have to hold these controllers, in your hand. There is no other way to do it because the lane changes are right there on the controller. And I find that it cramps my muscles and makes my fingers stiff. If you're doing Disco Le Mans, you do a 2-hour stint, your hands are on fire by the end of it because they're just so stiff. So my sneaky plan is that here are the lane changer switches right there, and you can easily access the contacts here.
Yeah.
My intention is to put a fly lead out of the controller on a 3.5mm jack plug, so that I can have a press switch to do the lane change. Now that won't suit my teammates, but so long as it's a detachable switch, you just plug it in, take it out, and then I can use it, and then I don't have to do this kind of thing like this, that everyone seems to have to do with this controller. It drives me crazy.
You're not going to check if that suits the officials as well, Alan.
Yeah, I will. I mean, but
it'll be like that Italian light box that was flashing red and green all night. That drove me mad.
There are lots of things going on with the controllers at these events that may or may not be permitted, to do with power supplies and various other things going on. But so long as I make sure that it's sort of safe and done properly and works properly, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not just going to turn up and expect to use it, but I am going to experiment with it. That's for sure.
Did you post your switch surgery on a forum somewhere?
No.
Yes, it's on slotcarwiki.org.
I think you should. I think I saw you post a question on one of the forums about where to find the switch, how to identify the switch and get the right kind. I think it would be a good thing to post that. I can't imagine Maurizio being upset that you repaired a damaged controller, or showing other people how to repair that kind of damage.
Yeah, I would say that my solderings, I'm okay to do this kind of stuff with a no fear approach. And if I burn the board, I throw this controller away and I, get on with my life and buy a new controller. I don't think I'm in a position to think that I could advise other people to do this kind of thing.
I mean, just post a picture, say, I fixed my thing. I can't tell you how to do it, but here's the switch I used. Follow these instructions at your own risk. I don't think people are going to be, you're not like promoting it. You're just saying, I broke my controller and here's how I fixed it. Maybe that'll help you at some point in the future too. That's the kind of stuff I like to see on forums, is that kind of stuff, is because just like you were trepidatious, should I even try? Am I going to ruin it? There are people out there who are in that same position, but then when they see you have done it, it's like, oh, maybe I can do it. They're not going to sue Maurizio or you if they screw it up because it's already broken. You can't break it more.
Well, and to your point, Greg, as you were all having this conversation, there were puffs of smoke off Mike's workbench. It was wonderful to watch.
Little firework display there.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was like like a little sort of mini, I don't know, explosions going on.
I'll tell you something
alchemy.
though. After looking at all of Kevin's stuff this morning, we should be sending our controllers to Kevin. He looked like he really knows what he's doing with electronics, right?
Oh yeah. Well, tell you what, Alan, if you don't want to post it, send me some pictures and stuff. I will post it and say a little birdie showed me this stuff. So
but
you don't
the
have
reason I don't want to post it is because it will show how ugly my soldering is.
then you will then nobody
No
who
one
has
ever died of
will
embarrassment.
know who supplied those. I'll say I did it because I'm already well known as a poor solderer. But especially your extended button intrigues me because I agree. I mean, I don't do 2-hour stints, and my hands get sore holding a controller like that, especially with the buttons on the side, making it a little bit less ergonomic for me.
I've asked Maurizio for advice on that because I'm not sure whether I need a 3-core or a 4-core cable, whether I need a 4-contact momentary switch or a 3-contact momentary switch. Well, I mean, when I post those kind of things or send an email to someone like Maurizio, I don't necessarily expect a response. I might get a response and that's great, and I might not, and that's okay too. But I'm just going to kind of try and progress as I want, see how it goes. So I've passed this idea past Maurizio, and it does make me wonder because I've raced with guys who've had physical disabilities.
I was just going to mention that.
Right.
And the SCP controller is a wonderful piece of engineering. Ergonomically, it's a train wreck. It's not pretty. It's an absolute train wreck. And it's okay. I mean, I can manage it as an able-bodied person. But if you've got somebody who's got any other kind of issues, they can't use it. I mean, even if you're left-handed, it's not straightforward to use the SCP2 at digital. And it would be nice to see the possibility to discuss the issue of improving the SCP controllers to suit people with certain challenges, in their driving.
Well, I know that Maurizio has worked with people in the past and done 3D printed, things and modified a controller to use other hardware to make it work and stuff like that. I forget the specifics, but I think the guy was controlling it with his jaw or something like that.
With his mouth, yeah. He was I think Martin might know a bit more about this as well. Didn't he play rugby, Martin? He got injured in a tackle or something and was obviously disabled. Obviously,
he was tetraplegic.
Yeah, slot racer, and obviously they Martin and I have been over to Italy, when was it? 2014, something like that.
2014 or 15, yeah.
And so,
but he had bite and blow, didn't he?
Yeah.
He
they bring the
bite
guy in
for one.
Yeah, plug him in and he has a go. It's great.
So Mauricio is definitely open to that. So I honestly, I would be surprised if he doesn't respond with some help.
Well, it's one of those things. Like I said, if he responds or doesn't respond, that's how it is. I'm not in a hurry, so it may just take him time. He's a busy guy. He has a life, so
that's
and a business.
Sure.
Two businesses.
And if it goes,
if
it goes more than a week, it's probably that he forgot because he was busy. So honestly, if he doesn't respond within 2 weeks tops, I would say, hey, did you get my email? And he'd be like, oh, geez, yeah, I forgot. Here was it.
But the ergonomics on SCP, that's a glorious opportunity for 3D printers to have a little go.
Yeah, I've never really had a problem with the ergonomics because the controller that I started out with this go around was the Scalextric digital controller, and it's not very ergonomically friendly. So the next controller I used was the slotted SCP, and it's basically the same handle shape as the Professor motor, and it doesn't look like they're having any plans to change. So I don't see the Maurizio going with a new handle, but even if I were to put that electronics board into another handle, there's not a whole lot that you can really change. You know,
No. Well, just reseat the sides of the buttons.
Yeah,
So you can have the buttons where your thumb is, so you can go up and down where so
I never raced
on the
like
throttle.
that, but I do like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I sort of this sort of affair, as Alan described, it's a strange thing, but
yeah.
for the disco races, we've usually got a bar we can lean on anyway.
I do like the idea.
Not a bar, a scaffold bar.
Yeah, and not the kind of bar we want to lean on either. Like, no barmaid, no beer.
But you guys do remember why it was called an SCP in the first place, right?
Si Capello, hair dryer.
For the hair, for the hair dryer, yeah.
Yeah.
While we're talking controllers, can I ask about something else?
Yeah.
I had a guy at the store who bought a Professor motor, one of the cheap transistorized controllers, but he wanted it set up to connect to the 3.5 millimeter jack that's on the very early 2-wire Scalextric power bases. So the first thing I did was get hold of Professor Motor to say, hey, you know, if I'm connecting this thing up, is it even possible? Because, you know, my limited understanding of electronics is that if you don't have a decent ground in there, you're not going to get the transistor to work properly. They came back and said, yeah, you can do it, but if you connect it up the wrong way around, it won't work. So I said, okay, fine. So tell me then, if you're connecting to a two-pin jack, a 3.5 millimeter jack, which wire goes where? Excuse me. And they couldn't tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or they didn't tell me. They just said, try it and see. You know, if the car goes flat out, it's wrong, swap it over. Problem was I didn't have a power base to test it on. So eventually what I had to do was I took a reversing switch out of a Carrera car and I wired it inside the controller and I connected the whole thing up and I put a little instruction into the controller when I sent it back to the customer and said, if you put the car on the track and it goes flat out, switch the switch the other way and carry on. And I haven't heard anything back, so obviously it worked. But does anybody know on the regular 2-pin old style 2-wire Scalextric, does the power come into the base of the plug or does it come into the tip of the plug? That's all I wanted to know.
It sounded like you got advice from somebody who failed bomb disposal school.
Well, you know, I wouldn't like to say who at Professor Motor gave me the advice, but if you call yourself a professor.
I mean, I would just call Alan because he's done Scalextric.
Yeah, okay. Alan would know.
Is his nickname Lefty?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I tried to help.
I assumed like anything that on a 2-connector 3.5 millimeter jack, that the power would be on the base and the output would be on the tip. So I wired it that way, you know, white wire to the base and black wire to the tip. So hopefully it worked.
I mean, he hasn't called back or sent angry emails, right?
No, not so far. So
He's been
either I got it right, or my idea of using the Carrera reversing switch inside the controller with a little hole in the handle to switch it over was a good enough response.
Or it could have been like Mike's workbench and just ominous puffs of smoke.
It was just the soldering iron, John.
His house burned down.
Honestly, the switch, putting a switch in there was genius. I can't imagine anybody else doing that for a
I thought about it for a while. I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to maybe put some connectors in the wires that you could swap over. I thought, that'll look pretty grotty, but I really needs a little. And I thought, hang on a moment. I've got all these Carrera reversing switches lying around here because I've taken them out of analog cars that have been given digital chips. So I got one of those out and I took off the little resistors and things that are on that. And I just wired it straight in and screwed it inside the controller, drilled a little hole through the handle right above the switch and printed up an instruction sheet. And there you go, worked perfect. Because they're pretty small, those things, it's not a lot of wire, not a lot of board.
And there's plenty of room inside the Professor Motor handle area to
put absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah, it worked great.
Topic of the day, controllers.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I am thinking about controllers, Greg, and one of the things that I really sort of wish TrueSpeed and one of the other major manufacturers would pick up is the idea that you can create an SCP2 compatible unit by having something that would just take an SCP2 cartridge. So you could have digital, analog, the high power analog, just something that's compatible. You could plug in the SCP2 cartridge, and I don't even know what's involved in that, but I think that would be really good to have the whole digital oxygen industry grow a little bit, give us some options. Right? I like the SCP2. I don't like it. That's the only thing that I can really use.
I agree with that, Alan, and I think that sorry, my camera's off at the moment. I think the SCP throttle is the thing that's holding oxygen back, if I'm honest.
And I think that you're more likely to see something like that happen for oxygen specifically because it's a chip on it's basically firmware for a chip, and then you decide what buttons and knobs and ergonomics and stuff like that. That's why the Arc Pro controller can be an oxygen controller. It's the tiniest little thing. You could any manufacturer who wanted to could enter the market with an oxygen controller. They would just need to work with Maurizio to get whatever permission or licensing agreement or whatever to be compatible. I don't think you're going to see anybody make a controller that you can plug a cartridge into, though, because that would be a whole nother ball of wax of I mean, the ergonomics are already kind of set, at least for what you're holding on to, because that cartridge has to slip into, that's half of the handle right there is that cartridge.
Yeah,
but I mean, you could have a different interface, so like a screen like David Kaya was showing off with his fancy controller design. You could have an oxygen controller with that kind of interface, but I would see that more likely to happen as an oxygen thing rather than a cartridge swapping thing. But that's just my opinion, man.
Maybe, but the thing is that cartridge, we're thinking that it has to go into the handle. It doesn't really have to go into the handle. It could go anywhere. It could go halfway down your lead. It could go on the floor in front of you. So long as all the connectors are there and the controller can talk to that cartridge, and then the cartridge does all the work. The cartridge for oxygen has the radio transmitter. The cartridge for analog does the high power, low power, switches the polarity. Since there's a lot of work in that cartridge, and if another manufacturer picked that up and just said, look, I don't need to develop all that. I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to use that. And what remains in the hand control, that's the stuff that I would really, really like somebody to pick up and do something with.
Is just like any situation where a license is required, a lot of companies will just say, nope, not gonna do it. I'll do my own thing. I can't disagree. I think it would be great to have more options available for oxygen controllers, as well as different ergonomic options for slotted.
Yeah, I think particularly the ergonomics. I think there's a lot of guys who don't like the size of the SCP. Some people don't like the Hall effect sensor that it's using for the trigger travel. I don't like obviously Alan doesn't like where the buttons and the dials are located.
Yep. Can't disagree with that. Well, I guess we're all out of chat. We're gonna just go ahead and stop.
Have we bottomed out the controller thing now? It's like,
Well, here's a dumb question. Most modern controllers seem to be trigger versus thumb. When did that all sort of change? Because in the 60s, there was, almost a 50-50 between both, right?
No, it changed in the late 60s. Except in the UK, I think, and here and there in a couple of other places where people started making their own thumb controllers with the resistors hanging down underneath, or with all the electronics that we use nowadays hanging down underneath. But I think certainly the American market went trigger controller by 100% by probably about 1970.
And that being said, when you buy a Carrera set, they're still thumb controlled.
Yeah.
The only one.
Wasn't one of the reasons for switching because the resistor in the handle got real warm?
Yeah, it got as hot as all heck.
Yeah.
And so the first thing we tried to do was we used to put a little strap around the outside of the controller so that when you were holding it, you could stretch your fingers and not move the controller would hold it there and you could blow on it or whatever, right? And then carry on. So I had a lot that had either a little band or a bit of wire, like a clip over your fingers. And then, later on, everybody went to the Palmer controllers, which were the development of the Rusket controller, right? The problem with those is they had a metal trigger. So that really didn't help you very much, because after a long period, the metal trigger got hot, even though the resistor was out of your hand now, right? You were still conducting some of the heat through the wiper and into the trigger. And I raised blisters from the heat of the controller in an endurance race on my finger. And then later on, of course, they went to a molded nylon trigger, and that got rid of that problem.
With John's question, though, John, you mentioned about you made a question and then you made an assumption that everyone's still using triggers. I mean, of the guys I raced down in London slot car, half of them are using plungers, and half of those who are using plungers are using home constructed plungers with alloy, an alloy grip and everything. These are handmade controllers. And in other places I've seen other people use the SCP like this. I've seen people use the SCP2 with their thumb. I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot.
And a lot of other trigger controllers, not just the SCPs, Palmers and Rusket, turbos and DeFalcos and anything else that uses that handle.
Yeah. But I would say, if those guys who use those thumb controllers, I mean, if you work with computers and you've been through an ergonomics course, your thumbs are really precious. You really shouldn't be using your thumbs in that repetitive strain injury kind of work. Use your fingers, not your thumbs. I mean, when you're texting, we always talk to teenagers and say, don't do texting like this. These thumbs, these muscles and these joints are really precious. You shouldn't be using them like that. And maybe the reason triggers took over was that people burned their thumbs out. I had to find another way to grip.
Okay, yeah, but there's also an issue of sensitivity, I imagine, as well, because you can, your fingers are certainly more agile than your thumb.
I mean, I have I've played with both the Carrera digital thumb plunger as well as trigger controllers for Carrera digital and other systems with the slot it and everything. And no matter how long I try to play with a thumb controller, yeah, I can get the car to go around and not crash quite so much, but it's definitely a lot more responsive for me to use my finger.
Right.
But is that because I started out with my finger and I just haven't spent as much time with my thumb, or because it's ergonomically better for me in particular, or just generally ergonomically better?
I think it's ergonomically better to use your finger. You have finer control, but
Right.
that takes you could take that to another degree. And do you use your index finger? Or do you use your middle finger? There's a big difference between how you drive with those two fingers. And then there are guys who will use both fingers. Right?
Yeah, I like a long trigger for both fingers, but how many of you guys can use your right and your left hand to race equally well?
Oh, not equally.
Yeah,
I
I can use my left, but yeah. Because some days, because of ergonomics and years of misuse, these two fingers click like mad some nights, and I have to go left-handed, and it does impact my times. But I'm sort of trying to learn to use my left hand as much as my right hand for that reason.
Yeah, physiologically, your middle finger, because of the number of nerves and muscles and fibers and everything, is the fastest reacting finger on your whole hand.
And anybody who's ever driven on a highway should know that.
I wondered when you were going to drag the discussion into the gutter, John, but yeah. but this is my grip, and I did some research, and definitely the middle finger is the way I go.
Yeah, Alan, for some reason, our club, people who drive like that are called busters.
It stabilizes the controller, so I don't have to do that. I hang this down by my side, so I don't have to have it up here. And this is the conclusion I came to, is that this is the right way to go for me. Now, that's not good for everybody, but for me, and that's something I changed about a year ago. I didn't used to use resistor controllers that way. Resistor controllers I found better because they're kind of grindy and not smooth. I would use my first finger, but the middle finger is definitely the way I feel right with the SCP2 because of the magnetic sensors and the spring. It just seems to work right for me.
So you mean in feedback with your first finger? So it's the feedback is what you're working with there, Alan?
Yeah, because of the swipe, and I find that on all controllers that have a contact swipe, but for the SCP2, where you have almost no feedback from the controller itself into your finger, I find that using my middle finger is far better.
More nerves, more muscles means something.
I ran with the index finger for many, many, many years until my arthritis started to get bad in that finger, and I found it was getting kind of painful to actually race. And so I taught myself to use my middle finger. And the first thing I found was I had to change all the settings on my controller because the feel is so different between the two. The second thing was that once I'd done that I was actually turning faster laps that way.
Yeah, I use the 2-finger trigger for mine.
Some guys will say that that's the best way because then the movement is tied between the two. They talk about the way in which the ligaments in your hand work, and that moving the two together actually makes both of them work better. But whether that's true or not, I don't know.
It's really hard to move just one without, especially the middle finger. My index finger wants to curl.
John will tell you how to use your middle finger.
Yeah,
that's what he was saying. He's the highway driver.
Well, we also learned at a young age here in this country because most people play hockey.
You don't need fingers for hockey. You just need fists.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
You don't need fingers like you don't need.
But the fight has to start somehow.
Yeah, as soon as they get on the ice.
Yeah, but is that why Brits are better with 2 fingers? Because we're used to doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That just confuses us North Americans. It's like, victory? You want?
Just watch Le Mans.
John,
just watch Le Mans.
Exactly. Yeah.
We'll wait for the recording to finish, John, and then I'll tell you exactly where that 2 fingers.
Okay, cool. I understand it's anatomically pertinent, but we'll go there later.
Yeah.
Maybe that's worth ending on. We have 5 more minutes. Does anybody have any last minute things they want to?
I was just going to say, Greg, some years ago, Dennis may be aware of this, was a New Zealander, a fellow called Dave Gick, who won a lot of top level racing. He was based in California, I think, he used a thumb controller, I believe.
I believe it was pronounced Jick, but yes,
Jick, okay, yeah,
Dave,
okay,
Dave Jick was a world champion slot car racer in a number of genres, and yeah, he runs with a thumb, still does.
Yeah, well, just for fun, about 20 years ago, and in an enduro, when our team was going to be run nowhere, like 7th out of 7. For the last 90-minute segment, I ran with an MRRC 5 ohm controller, and was sort of greeted with some looks of disbelief by all the younger racers around. Say, what the hell has that guy got there? And but surprisingly, it didn't overheat or anything like that. So I find these days, if I get too intense with a trigger controller, which I use most of the time, after the racing, my fingers just start curling in, and I've got to physically straighten them out. So
but Dennis, to Dennis's earlier point, there were some real contraptions in the 60s for controllers.
Oh, there's still some real contraptions now. I was trying to find some photos that I took when I was in South Africa of guys who are building their own controllers out there. But some of them you need 2 hands to pick it up, and it's built out of fiberboard or pieces of acrylic sheet that are 1/4 of an inch thick and then laminated together, and the whole thing weighs like 5 pounds, right? And I could suspend a race car on some of the return springs they were using. I mean, it's just crazy. And how the guys managed to drive them, I don't know, but they do. Yeah, but in a country like South Africa, where the exchange rate is causing imported stuff to become prohibitively expensive, there are a lot of guys doing all kinds of very very interesting and ingenious things to race their slot cars. And one of them is making their own controller. But we did it right from the beginning, before we went on to triggers, and we were still using the plunger type controller. Most of us had some kind of acrylic sheet plexiglass or perspex handle with a rod or a shaft down the middle of it, and then the whole resistor suspended underneath with the wiper there. I wish I could find some of those photos, but I can't at the moment. But yeah, we did that for a long time.
Well, even behind me, I can show you, I've got one of those Revell controllers, which, I mean, I've heard that they used parts from like points from automotive manufacturers or something.
Is that one with the vibratory one?
It's right here. Let me just get it for you. I've got 2 versions of them, but this was the you can see that, right?
Yeah. The Star Trek phaser.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? They work quite well, and you can use them either as a sort of trigger thing or with your thumb.
Or as a doorbell ringer.
They do work, yes. Or you know what else? Scares the heck out of the cats.
Yeah.
But if you think about it too, this is a precursor to a design for a mouse.
Yeah.
True.
They just didn't know what it was for then, I guess. I don't know.
An Apple mouse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 1 button. Exactly.
Remember as a kid running in a series and desperately wanted to winning this slot car race series, because the winning prize was a gift certificate worth exactly what an MRRC Very Ohm controller was worth.
Ooh.
And I thought the MRRC Very Ohm controller was just the greatest. Like I couldn't believe how good this thing was. So very cool.
And it would help you win all the races.
It would.
On that note, we're going to end the recording. Maybe in the future, we'll have some really cool pictures of really weird controllers. But for now,
look for some. Yeah.
We will hit the stop button and say goodbye.
Bye, guys.